If you've been looking for amazing and creative ideas for making over old baskets, then you came to the right place. Hi, I'm Alana and welcome to my crafting channel at Upcycling NZ. Let's upcycle. I thrifted 2 of these baskets at low cost and I was given one to make over by a family member. They're a decent size and they're all a little bit different, so I'll be making 3 different styles with these today. They're a good size and you can see from the bamboo part of this basket that there's a little bit of water damage. They're all a bit grubby too, so I'll give them all a really good clean. So to clean these baskets, I'm taking some bleach and some water in a spray bottle, quite a strong mix, and I'm just going to spray that all over the basket and try and get down in all of those little crevices. That'll stop any mildew or moisture in its tracks. Then I gave them a spray wash with water and washed all the bleach off. I gave these a big swing outside to release all of the water from the basket, and then they didn't take too long to dry out. So for project number 1, I'll start with that long basket with the handles. The floor of this basket's in really good condition and there's still plenty of varnish on it. It's really just that bamboo surround at the top. So I'm going to take my homemade chalk paint in the colour linen white. If you're interested in how to make the homemade chalk paint, just check out my channel. The recipe is so easy and you'll find it under my video what to do with your shitty old paints. So I'm giving this 2 coats, allowing it to dry in between coats. I managed to find these beautiful napkins at one of the dollar stores here in New Zealand. And I'm going to cut the circle part of the design out of the napkin before I unfold it. I'm removing the back of my napkin. This is a 2-ply napkin. If you've got a 3-ply, you'll need to remove both of those other 2 plies. And I'm just going to cut out this little section, of which there's 4 in every circle design on this napkin. I'll decoupage these onto the basket and I'm using Mod Podge in a satin finish. I'll also use the Mod Podge to seal in the chalk paint, so I'm covering every painted area while I'm decoupaging. I'm being really gentle here and I'm spreading the glue out from the centre towards the outer edges. Very gently so I don't rip the tissue paper, and that way I'm removing any bubbles and creases while I'm at it. I think if I'd had any, I would have preferred a high gloss decoupage medium for this project. Then it would have achieved a really porcelain look to the bamboo strip around the top. Once that first coat of Mod Podge had dried, I added a second coat. That's it for this basket. I think it's ended up looking very elegant and high-end. Let me know what you think in the comments. Alright, on to basket number 2. Again, I'm going to paint this basket in the white chalk paint. I found the most effective way to paint these baskets was to spread my first dip of paint across a big area first and then continue to spread it out across that area. That way you didn't get too much pooling of the paint. I gave it 2 coats, and next I'm going to add this fringe detail all around the top of the basket with hot glue. I got this jute fringe on sale at the dollar store. I'll trim off the end and just overlap it very slightly, making sure I've got plenty of glue there to hold that end together. I'm elevating this basket with an old lampshade frame, and I've put a bead at the end of each of those legs and a bit of felt in the middle. I glued the felt on with some super glue so it wouldn't come away from the metal frame. Then I'm finding the centre where the basket balances best. Now if I add a really generous amount of hot glue between the felt and the basket, it will drip down into the fibres of the basket and have a really tight grip on the stand. That became really secure once that hot glue had cooled down. I need to seal the chalk paint. All chalk paint needs to be sealed. So I'm using a clear wax. This is a soft wax product by Feast & Watson, and I apply it with a shaving brush. I'm not putting too much wax on my brush because I don't want it to build up in those crevices around the basket, and a little goes a long way with this stuff. Just continue to rub and it will really spread out across the surface of your painted areas. Okay, I'm going to go for a boho feel with this basket, so I'm going to take some twine and I'm taking a length of it, well, I guess about 20 centimetres long, and I'll fold over 6 strands altogether. I'm opening the ends up and I'm going to remove one strand from this group because I'm going to make several of these and I'm going to use that as a measurement. So with the other 5 strands I'm going to fold those in half and I'll loosen one of those strands up because I'm going to use that to tie the top of these. I'll just poke it up a little bit higher so I know which one I'm using, and take one end of it and wrap it around itself, trapping the top in again. I'll thread that end through the loop, and it helps to put a screwdriver or something through the other loops just to hold them in place, and I'm pulling down on that loop until the end is tucked under the rat piece. And I've created a wee tassel. I've made 12 of them and I'm just going to trim them all off to the same length. You could make these any length you like depending on the look you're going for. Now I'm going to untwist each strand and it will make these tassels a lot fluffier. Now that is doubled in size compared to what I started with. I'm going to sew these to my basket just with a doubled over cotton and thread in white. I've added a dab of PVA glue to the top of each tassel just to ensure that it won't come undone. And when I'm sewing them on, I'm just making sure the first loop that I put through the basket traps that fringe detail around the top. Now I know nothing's going to come off my basket. I've added my tassels about 2 centimetres from the very top rim, but you could put them literally anywhere you wanted on your basket. I'm going around several times with my cotton, just using one of these strands from the basket weave and running the cotton through the loop each time. Then I'm just going to secure it using 2 of those strands from the basket weave. And that will just really solidify where it sits. And I'm running the needle back through the loop each time to create a knot. Once I'm happy with how secure that is, and you probably have your own sewing style, I'll just trim that off and tuck those 2 little ends of the cotton away with another little dab of PVA glue or white glue. Any glue that sets clear really. I love the boho feel of this basket, and you could do it in any colour to match your home decor. What do you think of this one? And now for basket number 3, and this one's my absolute favourite. My Auntie Denise gave me this to make over. Thanks, Auntie Den. Now I thought I'd try a whitewash on this one, so I mixed half paint, half water and did a coat, and then decided that I didn't actually like it that much. But that's okay, I'll use that as an undercoat. I'm going to use another of my homemade chalk paints in the colour Fran Green, and I'm going to give it 2 good coats. The more paint I got on this basket, the more I liked this colour. This basket was so porous that the paint dried pretty much as I was painting it. So I just carried straight on with the second coat. Here's how it's looking, and I just love this colour. Then I thought, I've got some macrame cord that's almost the same colour as this, which would add a nice different texture to this basket. So I just found one of the open holes near the top, threaded it through with a screwdriver, tied a little knot, pulled it tight and started winding it around the rim. If you're still with me and you've been enjoying the content so far, please consider giving it a like, maybe subscribing or possibly even sharing it out, which would really help me to start to grow my channel. I'm still trying to get it off the ground. Luckily, I really love crafting, so it's not a biggie. So I think I've gone around about 4 or 5 times around the top there, just till I had a nice band that was really visible. I'll trim that off, and I'm just going to tuck the end under that little cross weave there. And for now, I'm just going to pull the end through. I had this beautiful lime green faux flower, and I've taken the backing off so that I could get it about as flat as I could. I want to attach it to the front of my basket, but it's a bit flimsy if I attached it directly to the basket. So I'm taking some hot glue and I'm going to create a little nest out of my macrame cord end. And I'll just do that by adding glue and winding it around and around, leaving a hollow in the very centre. I'll tuck away those loose ends nicely with the glue. Then I'm adding a generous amount of hot glue to attach my flower to the front. There really is nothing worse than your project falling apart when you go to sell it or have it on display. So I'm adding a little bit of glue in between the petals to ensure that that flower doesn't fall to pieces. This looks great just as it is, this project, but I want to recreate the colour of that flower. So I'm taking some acrylic paint in a lime green and a yellow, and I'll mix those until I've recreated that colour of the flower so that I can make a hang tag with this little piece of wood. I think this colour's pretty close now. Yep, I'll carry on and I'll paint my little piece of wood. I think this came off a little kit set child's toy. It already had a hole in it, so I thought that'll be perfect. I did a second coat on it, and before the paint was dry, I went back to my original colour, the Fran Green, and I took a dry brush. I offloaded most of the paint, and I'm just gently going to stipple that onto the edges, blending it with that lime green paint. You'll notice I'm gently building up the colour, and then I'll start to focus on the 4 corners and put a little bit more depth of colour and more paint on the very corners. Once I'd completed that, I allowed it to dry, and then I dug out a little piece of lace and a little piece of ribbon. I managed to find some complementary colours. I buy a lot of ribbon and lace from the thrift stores in bags, and they'll have a variety of different colours, so these were just a couple of random pieces. I've just doubled it over and pushed the loop through the hole, and then I'll thread the ends back through the loop, and that'll create my hanger for the tag. I'll put a transfer on the front of this, and I'm still working through a group of really small transfers that I had. And I've been trying to use these up in the last few projects that I've been doing. So I'll take this little bumblebee. It's not going to be quite the right shape, but I'll start to manipulate this transfer so that I can make it into the right shape, and you'll see how I do that. I get my transfers from their Temu website, and they always have some that are on special, which is the best way to buy these. So I'm removing some of that wording from the background so that I can create the shape that I'm looking for. But I'm not going to throw those little offcuts away, and I'll show you why. How these transfers work is that you take the backing sheet off. It has a sticky back, and you apply that where you want it to go. And there's a transfer stick that comes with each pack. It's a little plastic spatula. And you just rub on your transfer going from one side of your image to the other. And you'll start to actually see it'll change colour as it lifts and adheres to your project. I always make sure I get right into those edges so that it starts on a good note. Then I just ensure I've gone across the whole surface of the image, and I'll start to lift one side, and it'll often just peel off nicely like that. If you find that some of it's not peeling off, just lay it back down and continue to rub. So now I'm taking all those little offcuts, and I'm going to fill all that void space with more writing, and I'm just going to try to line that up and get the spacing the same as the image that was already there. This is a bit fiddly, this part, but you can see how versatile these transfers are and how you can get really creative with them. I think this gorgeous little bumblebee is going to go so well with that flower. To really ensure that it stays down, I take the backing sheet and apply pressure all over the image. That image will not come off now. You would struggle to scratch that off. Now I can tie my hang tag to the basket, and I'm just going to thread it through underneath some of that macrame cord at the top. I've really enjoyed using a bright colour in this project. I haven't done that much lately. I must do that more often. I'm pretty happy with that placement, so I'll go ahead and tie a bow at the top of my ribbon and lace. Then I just have to clear wax this basket the same way that I did the others to seal in that chalk paint. And I really should have done this before I started putting all my embellishments on the basket, but hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? You would normally buff off your clear wax when you'd finish, but with these baskets, they're so porous. I just left this light coating on, and it's protecting the basket and doesn't feel too greasy. Now my basket's giving off awesome spring vibes. I love it. It's my favourite. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have you got a favourite? My gorgeous niece and nephew helped me style this shot, can you tell? Well, that's all for this week from beautiful New Zealand. I post weekly, so if you want to come back and find out what I'm up to next week, please do. So this is the environment I have to suffer in my spare time. It's a tough life. If you've never been to New Zealand, why don't you come and see us sometime? Thank you so much for watching, and if you're so inclined, please click all the buttons, do all the things, and I will see you here next week. Bye for now.